Thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Unlocking the Power of Creator Marketing as a Growth Channel. My name is Jessica Utley, and I am the head of our creative studio team here at StackAdapt. Before we get started, we have some housekeeping items to cover, and then we can get the webinar underway. We are, as always, happy to field any questions you might have on any of the content we present today. Please feel free to place them in the questions area of the GoToWebinar panel. We'll address all questions at the end of our session during the Q&A portion. If there are any questions that we're not able to address in the allotted time, we'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. And just a quick note, this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with you shortly after we end. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to IJ to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. Hey, everyone. So welcome to today's webinar. So for those of you who aren't already familiar with StackAdapt, and if you already are, I'll just share a refresher and a little bit about what we do. So we are a performance-driven omni-channel programmatic advertising platform, and we incorporate AI and machine learning to deliver cutting-edge user experience for our clients. So we help advertisers to plan, execute, and manage advertising campaigns from end to end across multiple channels and devices, also while plugging into a large ecosystem of our inventory and publisher partners. So I'll pass it off to Ashley to speak a little bit about #paid and their capabilities.
Awesome. And so, yes, we're #paid. We are one of the #1 creator marketing platforms, and we are an all-in-one creator marketing platforms. And our value is really that we help brands match with the ideal creators for campaigns. And this matching ability really helps both save time as well as to enable you to get the right creators for your campaigns. So creators are pre-qualified to fit your budget and your target market. And then the benefit is that they can pitch to you why they like your brand after they've been matched, as well as concepts for your review, so that you can understand all of that before they are contracted. And then you can easily launch campaigns either through the service or through our managed service, as well as getting valuable insights through the platform to be able to better understand measurement and drive the highest impact. And we're currently actually working to build out an offering that allows StackAdapt to offer their clients end-to-end influencer marketing services as part of their StackAdapt campaigns. We're currently in the beta stage right now, but we're aiming for a release in 2023.
Awesome. So our panel today would consist of 3 lovely ladies, and we'll be walking you through the presentation today. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Idrioma. Everyone calls me IJ. I'm a senior analyst on the solutions consulting side here at StackAdapt. And on the solution consulting team, we essentially specialize in developing strategic growth initiatives and building vertical specific as well as vertical agnostic solutions for our clients, to which creator marketing is one of them. And I work alongside Ancho, our vertical strategy lead, to support all creator marketing efforts on the StackAdapt side. So I'll pass it on to Jess and Ashley to share a little bit about themselves.
Thanks, IJ. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Jess, our Director of Creative Services here at StackAdapt. My background is in design and customer success, and now I have the pleasure of leading our creative studio team of more than 45 talented designers and strategists. We partner with agencies and brands to take their creatives to the next level across all of the channels offered on the StackAdapt platform. Over to you, Ashley.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Risk, and I'm the head of business strategy at #paid. I look after innovation and partnerships, and have really always felt in this space, as I've been in creator marketing for the last decade, that creators are often overlooked in terms of their value, and they can be a center of your marketing and really then can offer a lot of distribution through different arms. So I'm excited about our talk today as StackAdapt explains how that can happen as a growth channel. And I have led and strategized with hundreds of brands on their creator marketing campaigns over the last 10 years.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So let's get into the agenda for today. So first things first, we'll be exploring why brands want to work with creators and the importance of creator marketing, how you can turn your creators into a scalable growth channel, some innovative ways to which you can leverage some of those creator assets and that content, some key takeaways from this, which you can incorporate into your marketing plan, as well as leaving some time at the end for like a quick Q&A session. So I'll let Ashley take it forward to talk about why it's important to leverage creators in your marketing tactics.
Yeah, so before we start, the big question is, so why do brands work with creators? We often hear about trust, credibility, the ability to work with creators to be able to have a voice and to be reaching communities. But when you actually look at the data, what we see is that although brands are referencing a lot of these intangible benefits, influencer marketing have found that the number one reason is actually that creators help drive sales. So for every dollar spent on creator marketing, brands have found an average return of $5.78, which is a huge return. It's almost a 6 times a return on investment. And so when we look further into how creators are able to do this, we see that one of the big things that creators are able to do is that they drive trust. And in a recent study that we did, we saw that 74% of people say that they trust what creators say about brands more than what brands say about themselves. And this is really important because it shows that a brand can talk about themselves and in their marketing, but when they use creators, their audience trusts it more. And 67% says that they're more likely to be persuaded by ads featuring a creator. And another thing that creators do is they add real-life context. 62% of consumers say they're more likely to click on content like ads, websites, social posts, or emails that feature people rather than an image created by a brand. And so an image with your product in your ads is good, but an image featuring people using that product, enjoying it, interacting with it is better. And that makes sense. I see this pizza and I think, okay, that looks like good pizza. But then I see this image of the family and I can envision myself as part of that experience. It evokes emotion, it paints a picture of how that product is brought to life. And now I'm envisioning how that product fits in my own life. And this is exactly what creators are so good at. And so if content featuring people performs better across all mediums and ad placements, then you really start to think about how much value creators can offer outside of the social feed. And another thing that creators do is they add relatability. So 64% of consumers took action, whether that was clicking on an ad, adding to cart, making a purchase. They took some action after seeing an ad that they considered to be diverse and inclusive. And it's because people want to see themselves represented and they want to view different perspectives. So another thing creators are good at is relating to people and telling their story, which is another benefit that you can add to your larger marketing plan. And creator content performs. In a meta-analysis we did, we studied 70 brands, 200 creators, 350 content pieces, and over 30,000 respondents. And we saw when running creator ads versus brand ads that they were 2 times more credible, 2 times more relatable, 2 times more realistic, and almost 2 times more authentic. And these are goals that brands often quote are important metrics for brand building and reasons that they invest in creators. However, as we looked further into it, it's important to know that these attributes were actually drivers of more tangible business goals. And so authenticity was a driver of message association. Relatability was a driver of favorability. Realism was a driver to stop and look at an ad. And credibility was a driver of purchases. But most marketers use creators for organic posting, and then they stop there. And in the ever-changing algorithms, that limits your viewerships. And as we've seen from earlier today, there's a lot of cases where we can see that creators have benefits outside of the social feed. So if creators add all of these benefits, how can you scale creator benefits all the way down the sales funnel? And that comes down to driving extended exposure and value with digital rights, because then you can extend the lifespan. And that starts with planning how you can use the content at the beginning, because this image is great. But then also think about off social, how this could also work for print, digital out of home, display, websites. And if a creator produces high quality and beautiful content, and you can work with them at the beginning to think about what rights you want to negotiate for, and ideally what variations of that content you might need for other placements, then the sky's the limit on how you can use that creator content. And by thinking about digital rights, it will allow you to maximize the investment instead of just relying on the reach it will have on social. And you can then turn that into a scalable growth channel. And so turning into a scalable growth channel is a really impactful way to make the most out of your marketing. And as we talked about, a lot of brands are using creators for organic, and that is when the creators are posting to their followers. And some brands are now moving to creator licensing, which is also a really great tactic of running paid social through the creator's handle to leverage that human connection and trust. But what is often overlooked is moving to this easy next stage of adding it to programmatic, because you combine that engaging experience of social media with the reach of programmatic, and then you can get people even closer to your cart or to your end goal. And so that is really what we're going to discuss today on how you can move to that stage 3 in a really easy turnkey way.
Perfect. So let's delve into how we can scale creator social audiences and extend the reach of those organic posts by pairing social with programmatic and essentially amplifying those creators across other channels. So we can take a look at the full funnel. At the upper funnel, we can leverage tactics such as organic posting, which essentially involves leveraging different tiers of creators, whether it be a micro to mid-tier creators, to really reach more niche audiences from their close-knit follower base, or potentially using macro or celebrity level creators to get the widest reach possible. And then going another step forward into those mid-funnel tactics, where you really want to leverage creator licensing, which is actually alluded to, is using creators' handles to create social ads and boost it to a much wider audience beyond the creator's followers. And at StackAdapt, we can combine this power of lookalike audiences to model those ideal user profiles that are already engaging with the ad or clicking through to your site, and really scaling up and extending that seed audience and putting your messages in front of the right people. So at this stage, you can also take advantage of programmatically retargeting this large audience pool to continually drive repeat messaging up those leads. I wanted to hone in on another thing that Ashley mentioned, which is the fact that you don't need to only use your creator content where it was originally posted. You can obtain digital rights to have access to those creators' content and repurpose this content in offline placements and other programmatic channels. And going one step further into the lower funnel, which is where programmatic really ties in well, we can leverage paid amplification strategies to drive users further down that funnel. On our end, we can leverage social display ads or HTML5 assets in the form of like shoppable video, which is built by our awesome creative studio team. They're meant to imitate that creator content so that the audience that has already engaged with this can like really help to combat blindness and bring social to users wherever they're browsing and also drive them closer to cart. So speaking more to that retargeting component, I wanted to chat about what supplementing those creator campaigns with retargeting strategies looks like and highlight some of the benefits of this. We're able to generate a unique custom retargeting audience pool by capturing or collecting that traffic from social campaigns using our universal pixel solution and continually retarget people programmatically based on who click through on those creators' posts and moving those qualified users further down the funnel in a cost-effective and performance-based way. So some benefits of these include a boost in return on investment, a significantly higher CTR than that of prospecting ads, a 16% increase in engagement rates and 33% increase in new customer acquisition, and about 8 times cheaper reach per click. So to the right is a chart comparing how well retargeting performs when compared to prospecting, for example, for a sample display campaign. You can see that the cost per acquisition is significantly cheaper post-retargeting. So people who maybe visit a website after having clicked on a retargeting ad. So for prospecting, it was over $200, and with retargeting, it was less than $3. And you can see also on the engagement rate side, there was about a 20% increase in engagement rates. Going off of that, there are tons of ways to use creators' posts and repurpose or amplify them across different channels. But for the sake of this presentation, we'll be focusing on 3, namely social display ads, interactive ads, and in-game channels. So I'll pass it off to Jess here to chat a bit about this deeper.
Awesome. Thank you so much, IJ. So first and foremost, we are going to chat about social display. So this is the easiest way for you to adapt your creator marketing for programmatic. Using these ads, they essentially mimic the look and feel of familiar social platforms, but they're served on the open internet programmatically instead of within those walled gardens. So social media content is something that most of us choose to interact with every day. And typically advertising, well, it's not. So by taking on the familiar aesthetics and interactions of social media, we can make an ad feel less like an ad. We also know that social media increases dopamine. So that's the chemical in the brain that makes us happy. So these ads can actually inspire some of those dopamine responses, and therefore, again, having a different reaction to advertising that we normally see. When compared to other display formats and designs, we've witnessed impressive results with social display again and again. We've seen a 25% average increase in click-through rate, improved cost per click, and a lower cost per acquisition. This is because the social display format feels authentic, welcomed, and non-intrusive to viewers, leading to increased engagement. So a few additional benefits of combining creator content with social display is that it's ideal for sensitive verticals that often run into, well, walls in the walled gardens. Creator content is perfect for sensitive verticals because it can help them relate to their audiences and build trust. As an example, think about, let's say, a campaign for a political vertical, let's say. So which would you be more likely to click on? An image of an I voted pin sitting on a table, or an image of a young person outside of a polling station smiling with an I voted pin on? I know which one I would choose. On top of all of this, social display also allows for additional tracking of engagement because we can pixel different elements within the creative, such as in this example, the heart button, the comment, or the share, and then we can use those pixels and that data to build retargeting strategies based on how your audiences are actually interacting with these creatives. So that's pretty cool. Another way to leverage creator content is completely outside of sort of the social normal application for it. So instead of doing social mimicking, why don't we apply creator content to very programmatically creative display ads? So we build a lot of HTML5 creatives here, and we see creator content implemented with these different tactics, and they're incredibly successful. So this is the less obvious way to leverage creator content, but we can add interactive elements to display creatives that just wouldn't be possible on social channels. In the example on this slide, we have this lovely lifestyle photo with the family, but then we can also layer on this shoppable carousel. So you're bridging the gap between this awareness where you're learning what the product is, and then the conversion stage of the funnel where you can actually shop through and click and learn about the products themselves. Another example of this, so you can see the social creator content on the left and then the programmatic creative on the right. So again, we've layered on that carousel in the bottom so that the user can cycle through and shop the products while learning about them from the creator's video. And just another example, not only carousels, we can do lots of different things with rich media. This one, for example, is what we call a hotspot here at StackAdapt. And so this one you can hover over different creator images and learn more about either different products, different offerings, maybe different benefits of a singular product, whatever makes sense for the brand. So highlighting again, a little bit of a summary of the benefits of working with interactive ads with creators. So again, you compare this content that shows you the product in real life alongside the product information, bridging that gap from awareness to conversion. You create an interactive shopping experience, and we know that the more that a user interacts with an ad, the more likely they are to remember the brand, remember the message, and remember the products. And of course, lifestyle inspiration can motivate purchases. So when you see somebody who's in a similar lifestyle or audience to you, or maybe they're even aspirational, a type of lifestyle you want or your audience wants for the future, then those types of lifestyle images can encourage purchases through that lens. And of course, as I mentioned, all of our rich media does come with advanced reporting and metrics, which means that you're able to take valuable insights back to your brand or to your marketing team to inform future strategies. And I'm going to pass it back over to IJ to walk us through in-game creatives.
Thank you, Jess. So lastly, we're going to talk about in-game. The in-game channel is a unique example of how here at StackAdapt, we can do programmatic amplification of social ads across different channels. And why is it unique? Because it has quickly become one of the fastest growing marketing channels in the sense that it is highly immersive and has various elements of interactivity and interaction. So you can really customize the ad placement with that creator content in a way that is native to the in-game experience. So this helps you to capture an already highly engaged audience of gamers while expanding your brand presence. So here are three things that are worth noting about in-game. So gaming marketing is being used by brands worldwide, from the likes of Gucci to Nike to Old Spice. Different verticals and different retailers are really realizing the benefits of in-game branding because no one likes disruptive ads. So in-game ads allows you to be fully integrated into that experience and cuts through the clutter and increases your brand relevance. And there's really no way to block your ad because you're a part of it. The second thing is that gamers are not just kids anymore. So the stats have shown that users are spending more time than ever engaging with games on their digital devices, averaging about 8 hours per week and an average of like an hour per session, and it's usually uninterrupted. And 69% of the US population play games with almost a 50-50 split between a male and female audience across all age demographics. So you can really reach whatever age demographic you want. Lastly, there are easily measurable effects. So in terms of measurability, because in-game has such precise targeting, it really makes it easy to measure. So we can track engagement metrics such as ad viewability, ad visibility, video completion rate, etc., which allows you to properly measure the success of your campaigns. So this next slide is just an example of how the brand Levi used in-game advertising to really increase awareness of their line of jeans. So you can see from that creative there that they featured one of the creator's assets just wearing these jeans and how it's styled, as well as included a couple of taglines and a logo to really drive that brand recall. The result of this was that 64% of those exposed to this campaign took an action of some sort, whether it was visiting the Levi's website or adding a product to cart or making a purchase. So what are some of the benefits of repurposing creator content in in-game ads? So they're easy to relate to, and you can inspire that audience with this creator lifestyle content. You can layer on logos and taglines to really increase brand recall and recognition because this is like a 100% viewable environment. Next, it's naturally immersive. It's a naturally immersive channel, so it has different elements naturally integrated with no way to really block your ad. So it helps you to connect your brand with a captivating audience who is unlikely to be multitasking. And lastly, there's advanced reporting on engagement metrics, which a few I mentioned. I spoke about the visibility, ad viewability, etc. So now that we've covered what's possible and a multitude of ways you can really leverage that creator content, I'll pass this off to Jess to share some action points you can take away so you can really start using this tactic.
Thank you, IJ. I think I'm actually going to pass it over to Ashley, who is covering this slide for us.
Thank you. So how do you act on this? One, develop long-term relationships with creators. One of the things that I've seen over the last 10 years is that clients have been very concerned about reaching a ceiling with a creator. They're concerned that if they just work with them and they're posting content, that they will reach a ceiling when it comes to their organic audience, but they haven't viewed them as a scalable growth channel in this way. So this will allow you to identify creators that really understand your brand, that love your brand, that produce content that is so on brand, and continue to create an image for you that builds that credibility and trust. And the more you invest in creators, the more that they're going to invest in you. So it allows you to work with a variety of creators for organic, but then go in deep to create a scalable growth channel with a few that really suit your brand ethos. Also, brief creators to build content for each stage in the funnel. An in-game ad is going to look slightly different than maybe an organic post where you're going to think about where you want to include like logos or taglines in the in-game versus organic is much more native. And it also might look different than if you were to use them from digital out of home. So if you think about how you can use their messaging, their content, and their creative, at the beginning, they can create versions for you that make sense for each stage in that funnel. And also ask creators up front for these digital rights to extend the lifespan of your content. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to own it as a proprietary asset. I mean, at the end of the day, after about like 6 months or so, it would be ideal to refresh your creative anyways. But if you can understand your media plan and your placements, you can have that honest conversation with them up front, which can save a lot of time and headache and also allow you to maximize on the budget so that you can work together to talk about where the assets are going to live and the reach that they're going to get. And we covered a lot today, so I want to end off with some key takeaways to remember as you're including this in your marketing plans. The first thing is to think of creators like a one-person media company. They can be your creative strategy, your production, and your distribution. So when you think of them this way, this does really allow you to get the most ROI out of the partnership. Social display is an easy first step. As Jessica talked about, it's very similar content, fast turnarounds, and turnkey distribution. So this is, if you were going to add anything as a first step, I would recommend adding social display as the format is almost identical. Interactive ads can gamify a shopping experience, which allows you to have more interactivity with your potential customers and likely bring them closer to that end purchase goal. And in-game is not just for kids. As IJ said, big brands are using this because of its high relevance and its ability to integrate into the ecosystem with no way to block your ad. So it is a really interesting avenue to explore, especially as what we're seeing is that there's a lot more eyeballs here than brands investing. So you can really stand out in an experience that is meaningful to your customers.
Thank you for that, Ashley. And thank you to our audience for hanging out with us today. Hopefully you found this content useful and relevant to your marketing plans for 2023. We would love to now jump into the Q&A portion of the webinar and open up the floor to any questions. As a reminder, if you do have any questions, please place them in the questions box of the GoToWebinar panel. Perfect. We're starting to see some coming through. There are several questions coming in already. So just a heads up to everyone that if we're not able to get to yours today, don't you worry, we'll follow up directly with you after the webinar. Okay, so I'm going to take the first question I see coming in here. The question is, when social posts on social display ads, does it act like a normal display ad where it takes them to the website, or can they actually interact with it by liking, hearting, etc.? This is a really great question. So it can actually do both. With our social display ads, you can click through directly to a website, a landing page, wherever you would like to point your audience to. If you're using different carousel features, you can also point them to specific product landing pages for a smoother transition. But we have also included different interactions like the hearts and the comments and that sort of thing. So we do try to avoid sort of text comments in the display environment, as it's typically not how consumers like to interact with display ads, but we absolutely do encourage the hearting or liking of items. And as I mentioned earlier, you can use the data from that to think about different retargeting strategies. So maybe you see that somebody in the audience liked the creative, but they didn't actually click through. You could retarget them with a secondary creative with different information to try to pull them through to that bottom funnel. Another question here, can we do creator licensing through StackAdapt, or would that be directly through #paid? IJ, did you want to take that one?
Sure. So creator licensing would be done through #paid. So essentially, Ashley, if you want to speak a little bit to how your team essentially helps brands do that creator licensing bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two ways that you can go about it. If you are a subscriber to our SaaS platform, you can do it in-house. We've got an incredible tool that allows you to pick your favorite creative at the end of the campaign, and you can send it directly to your ads manager and run it through that creator's handle within your own team. Or we have a managed service offering where we would do that entire process for you as well, instead, in addition to a detailed reporting after the fact.
Next question. When I think of creator marketing, I think of B2C or a younger demographic. How can we utilize these capabilities for an older demographic or in a B2B space? I think this is a really great question. I'm sure Ashley has thoughts on this as well, but I'm going to jump in from the creative lens and also mention that, showing the demographic that you're trying to reach, there definitely are older creators if you're trying to reach that market, or thinking about the people who maybe interact with that older demographic that can take your message forward to that older audience. So for example, if I'm trying to reach a more senior audience, then maybe I also want to focus on their caregivers or the people who give them support in their life. On the other end, B2B space, I mean, B2B businesses, marketers, all the folks who leverage different B2B services, they're on social too. So this content is definitely relevant to them. And I can tell you that a creator image of somebody, using a software or, interacting with a computer or a piece of technology is definitely going to be more engaging than showing a screenshot or a blank screen or something like that in your creative. What do you think, Ashley? Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think these are all really great points. I think sometimes it is overlooked that it's thought to be a young audience on social, which isn't necessarily the case. I think it's interesting that 60% of people that are going to have purchasing power are now in the Gen Z and millennial age group. But if you do have a product that is very specifically targeted to, say, the 50 plus, or I think that for B2B, what I love about the programmatic offering is that people are on social. And as we've seen in the data that we showed, they relate to other people. We're seeing, as we showed, like 62% increase in clicking on something where they see themselves being represented, and having that relatability and the ability to see that it's not just a product images, but how it's brought to life. And with the targeting that StackAdapt is able to then offer, you can create these really compelling images with the setting of a social media offering, and still be able to serve them and encourage them and engage with them. And then you also think about all the other platforms out there and how they can make you feel. So it's not just Instagram and Meta that we showed as the StackAdapt offering, but we can replicate Pinterest or LinkedIn. And so I think when you're thinking about either an older demographic or B2B, sometimes B2B is challenging in that creator marketing space, but this unlocks all of these new opportunities.
Such great points. Thank you, Ashley. I also just wanted to jump in and mention my favorite thing that I love to say about programmatic in relation to social is not everybody is on social media, but everybody is on the internet. And so programmatic is the best way to reach all of your audiences. Perfect. Just scrolling through some more questions here. Let's see. Are there any restrictions on political content? That is a really great question. I'm going to touch on it from the creative lens, and I'm not sure, IJ, if there's anything you want to tack on top of this, but from the creative production side, political content does come with some guidelines that we like to follow. So typically a disclaimer is required. Typically certain types of messaging is to be avoided. That was something that we can also discuss with you at an individual brand level, as every brand will have different sort of requirements, and it's also based on geo.
Yeah, and I can just add on top of that, for each of like our sensitive verticals, there are a couple of like do's and don'ts, as well as like brand guidelines, and especially for something like political, there'll be like some legislative restrictions for like US or like Canada or something like that. So we would walk you through essentially those do's and don'ts for your brand, and kind of like streamline and point you in the right direction of how to like model your creative strategy or like your creator strategy. And we work closely with #paid for stuff like this.
Next question. Do you have any insights like you shared today broken down by industry? We can probably follow up with you on that one, Megan. One thing I will mention when it comes to industry specific insights, we definitely have some creative specific benchmarks that we can share with you. That being said, my advice is always, benchmarks are a great starting place, but the best way to know what works for your brand is to test. So test social display, test these interactive ads in your specific industry for your specific audience, because it's always going to be unique to the brand and the different tactics that are required for your campaign. Let's see here. So when it comes to the widget shown as a carousel on the creator's post, would this mean the creator would have to guide their audience from their Instagram post to the link where they're able to interact with this? Great question. So the example that we shared with the display ad that had the carousel on it, that would actually not be served on social. So only the creator's content itself would be served on social if that's the path you choose for your strategy. The creative that has the carousel on it would be served programmatically. But to your point, there is definitely an opportunity to have creators have different links in their bios if you want to lead them to different landing pages as part of that interaction.
And one other point I was going to say is, like, again, like the great thing about creators is that the sky's the limit in terms of the messaging and the creative and what our goal is and the objective. And so, for example, I've done things before with YouTube ads where I remember you had to like click on the eye and to expand, and that could be very hidden. So we can create ads, or we can create content that could be specific for shopping units, where it's almost like they're engaging with their audience on how they should be clicking through. So they can be showing things, and they can literally be saying, click through the carousel and see what's your favorite. So you can be so custom with the content that you're producing if you really think about it at the beginning stages and being thoughtful on that high level approach.
So true. Great point, Ashley. And then last question here, actually, sorry, not last question. We've actually got a few more rolling in. This one I think is for you, Ashley. How does #paid measure ROI of influencer programs?
It's a great question, and it really comes down to a few things. One, what information they are sharing to us as well on the back end. That's why I love pairing on creator licensing and StackAdapt offerings, because it can show you a lot more of that full funnel approach. I think a caution on ROI, when I've been talking to a lot of different attribution companies, there's a couple that I like, Northbeam, Triple Whale, or Outpoint, that does MMM regression modeling. A lot of times what happens is if you're using a tool like Google Analytics, it's not allowing you to show how big that top funnel is, and you're often getting too much credit from click attribution because that's your last click. And when talking to Rob, the CEO of Outpoint, he says when he is looking at regression modeling to see a brand's total marketing mix, that he sees click-based attribution is actually only often 30% of the attribution from any of the mediums, versus 70% is that unattributed attribution. So companies like Northbeam and Triple Whale, they will allow you to see this multi-touch attribution so that you can actually see more how your different mediums are impacting that end goal. So when it comes to ROI, there's a lot of things that we would ask in terms of what ROI means to a brand. Like, is it the actual purchase in that moment? Or is it things like brand awareness, consideration, reach, and things like that? So we do have ways to measure with our measurement suite on what happens there and the why, which is really interesting, so that you can replicate success and learnings. But there are a lot of different ways that we would approach that conversation, and we would customize the strategy and the creative approach based off of what that end goal is, in addition to thinking about the other mediums that we're using creator content, so that we can, again, go closer to whatever that end goal is, like IJ was speaking about in that funnel example.
So the next question we have here is, how long does it take to turn creator content into programmatic creatives? I'm happy to take this question. So if you're working with our creative studio team, you essentially have two options when it comes to display. So we have our express builds and we have our exclusive builds. So express builds are templatized versions, so you can go to market faster. So we can produce different programmatic creatives for you in about 2 to 5 business days using that method. Or if you want something that's entirely custom, built from the ground up, specific to your brand, and all of those different specifications, then that can take a little bit longer, closer to the sort of 6 to 15 day mark, again, depending on, you know, rounds of revisions and customizations and things like that. But ultimately, it's pretty quick, and especially because if you're working with your creators specifically to develop content that's built for programmatic and applies to all these different phases of the funnel, then it'll be very easy for us to apply these into your programmatic creatives. We can also apply creator content into video, into native ads, so it doesn't just have to be display, and all that can be done pretty quickly, but we can work directly with you to understand those timelines and make them work for you. Perfect. And then next question is, I know Ashley touched on this briefly, but maybe IJ, you can touch on this from the StackAdapt side. What type of measurement is available through creator marketing?
Awesome. Yeah, so there's a lot that's available through #paid post campaign, and I'll let Ashley speak to that. But in addition to this, on the programmatic retargeting and amplification side, StackAdapt is able to offer campaign level reporting, which is available through our platform, and we can offer like additional stuff like offline measurement and attribution solutions, so the likes of FTA, brand lift study, just to name a few, and really tie those impressions back and measure the impact of your ads. But I'd like to actually speak to what's possible post campaign on the #paid reporting side.
Yeah, so we love that type of reporting, that working with IJ's team. In addition, you would also get a chance to see things like impressions, views, engagement rate, clicks, shares. And so we are able to see the impact on some of those metrics. In addition to, depending on what we're trying to measure, we can go deeper than that and take a look at things ranging from traffic to sales lift.
Love that. Next question. What is the benefit of running a creator marketing strategy in tandem with programmatic advertising versus one or the other on its own?
Awesome, I can take this. I think I kind of spoke about this in the presentation about really expanding the reach of that like seed audiences, because obviously with working with micro or mid-tier influencers, you would get access to their follower base, which is like a smaller but more niche audiences. But with programmatic, we're able to layer on like a lookalike pixel to really expand on that ideal user profile and do custom retargeting and further drive that messaging and drive that pool of users down the funnel. So we're able to pixel the landing page and continually serve ads based on what you saw in the creator's post, and just like really bring it to the top of your mind.
Great. Next question. Does StackAdapt support our brands in shaping the creator marketing strategy? What level of creative input does the client/brand have?
I can take this one. So again, we work in tandem with #paid to execute on campaigns. So whether it be influencer selection, that's shortlisting influencers based on like social persona and how it resonates with the brand objective, designing those content ideas, storyboarding, creative concepts, and giving that like client the full control on like input into the entire process from end to end. So we're not doing anything apart from their feedback. So the entire strategy is built off of their input. So yeah.
Perfect. And we can come to you with, we would come to you with insights, trends, recommendations, but it would be in tandem with the brand and the brand approval. And I do always recommend when working with creators to really trust the creator. They understand audiences, they speak the language, they relate best. And I've seen so many examples where a brand in organic is trying to ensure that it's looking like an ad and having their brand be very front and center. However, it's really important that we think of how it takes part in the story. And then especially if we are layering on creator licensing and programmatic, we can think about how that retargeting approach is. But when you are relating to a creator and you're following that creator, they are like a friend. And so you are really paying attention to what they're saying, their recommendations, how it's fitting in. And I've seen so many times where a brand thought that the brand didn't have enough presence, but we encouraged them to try it, and they were shocked at how receptive and aware people were of the brand, asking questions about it, and where did you get that? So I think that is something that it's important to note as well, is that it's really important to trust a creator so that you can have the maximum impact, at least in the organic stage.
That's such a great point, Ashley. Thank you so much for adding that. And then our last question is, what channels and verticals are best suited to creator marketing?
If this is, I think anything, which is so great. I like, even like in B2B, I find that we struggle a little bit more on the organic creator side. I think that's a really tough market to target organically. And LinkedIn is doing a better job at it, but that's never been our focus. However, now with programmatic strategies, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities, in addition to things like cannabis and pharma and gambling and even alcohol, where there's so many restrictions on social. So you can now work with creators and then think about how you can overcome those limitations, which is great. So really, I don't see with all of these offerings any market that you can't reach. This obviously has done very well over the last years with your big B2C brands, from fashion, food, lifestyle, gaming, anything that, if it's not like lifestyle category, but we've had very successful campaigns around auto. We've done some pharma campaigns recently. So yeah, there isn't really a category that I can think of that this isn't a fit.
And it actually calls to mind something you said previously, which is to trust the creator. So even if you aren't sure how to leverage creator marketing for your specific brands, you can lean on the StackAdapt team, the hashtag paid team, and the creators themselves to help you figure out those ideas. You do not need to come with a fully fledged concept ready to go. If you're not sure how to apply this to your brands, let us help you figure that out.
Exactly. And I think that's great, because we really just want to understand your marketing knowledge, which is what you have access to. So your target market, your messaging, like what your product is about. And then as a team with StackAdapt, hashtag paid, and the creators, we can tap into those trends and what people are interested in and the creative concepts.
Exactly. And I think that is a perfect note to end on. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining our webinar today, all about creator marketing and how that can be a growth channel for your brands. That concludes today's webinar. So we hope you found it informative and insightful. And as a reminder, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with the recording to all registrants. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any other questions. And thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.